Why is it that we can't track a plane?
Well, the biggest problem is the vast distances. You know, you have satellites, and some of these airplanes have satellite capability, but you have such vast distances that sometimes the information they get is inaccurate, and sometimes they don't get any information at all. And the technology is not up to date on these airplanes where they can track them, you know, within a quarter of a mile or so. It's sometime in the future, maybe, but not now.
Phil, why is that the case in your view?
Money and the push is not there internationally. And from the airline's perspective, they are using the technology that's been there for some time, air traffic control centers, and as the captain mentioned, there are satellite coordinates and satellite communication so they can track airlines, generally speaking, relatively close, but not exactly where they are, to upgrade to this next generation of air traffic control worldwide. It's going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars. And the question becomes,
but Phil, that's a rounding error. Even the U.S. budget alone, that's a rounding error. Isn't there some way for maybe the Americans here or somebody with the fiscal flexibility to take the lead and just make this happen?
Yeah,
well,
but who's that going to be?
Go ahead.
What's that, Phil?
Who's that going to be? And who's going to take the responsibility to pay for all this? The federal government in the United States isn't going to do it. The airlines certainly aren't going to do it. So the only thing you can do is maybe put an additional tax on the tickets, and the passengers are already paying absorbent
Fine, do it, Larry.
prices.
Would you support that tax? I would support that as a passenger. A couple dollars on my next air, fine.
But it probably wouldn't be just a couple dollars. It would be probably $20 a round trip.
And on top of that,
how big?
Kelly,
What is the size of the
States.
airline industry globally? It has to be what, $100 billion? Am I way off, Phil? Denny?
Yeah, there's a lot of money that the airlines take in internationally, but they have a lot of expenses. Yeah, and they're just not going to pay the money to get this up to speed.
Look what oil prices just did, Larry. They can't take a little bit of that to upgrade their technology?
It's just, I don't know what a little bit means. There are already a lot of user fees on the airlines. You know, Captain Kelly, may I ask you, sir?
Sure.
And I speak as an absolute novice. What caused this? Was this bad weather? Was this an instrument breakdown? Did somebody shoot it out of the sky? What is your theory? What caused this crash?
Well, this particular airplane, this specific model airplane, 2 weeks ago or so, there came out an emergency airworthiness directive that this airplane, under certain icing conditions, it becomes uncontrollable. These Airbus airplanes are all electric. The pilot has no direct control of the airplane. Everything is through a computer. And if you get this icing condition, the computer senses the wrong information and the airplane can become uncontrollable. Now, they've come up with a temporary fix, but this fix is so exorbitant that you'd have to be a Superman to be, you know, in turbulence in the dark and the airplane going out of control to be able to pull all these circuit breakers and turn all these switches. This is a weather accident, is what it is.
Kayla?
And then when you get in, you know.
My question is for Phil, and it's just, you know, we see the airlines here in the U.S. spending hundreds of millions of dollars to renovate their terminals, something that, you know, is not necessarily a pressing need. But then again, it's not the airlines here in the U.S. that are having issues like we've seen with AirAsia and with the Malaysian Airlines as well. I'm wondering, Phil, do you think that we need something like the IATA to mandate that some of these lower cost airlines have the technology to step in circumstances like we've seen?
I think it's going to be much more than the IATA are needed. You're going to need to have the major governments around the world lead the way. And that's a start. But even after that, you're going to have a lot of smaller countries, especially in Southeast Asia, who might be looking at this and saying, who's going to pay for this upgrade in air traffic control? And it's easy for us to say from the United States, with the airlines doing as well as they are, well, take some of the profits and do that. Not every airline around the world is profitable. And in some of these smaller countries, you're going to have some pushback. And so now it becomes the question of, are you going to get this worldwide?